The village woke to the scent of dew and dread. Elias, barely 13, stood at the edge of the square, his bare feet sinking into the cool earth. His hair, the color of ripe chestnuts, caught the first rays of dawn, and his eyes, wide as a deer's, flickered with unease. The villagers whispered of his beauty skin like polished alabaster, features so delicate they seemed carved by a divine hand. To them, it was a gift, a mark of favor from the gods. To Elias, it was a weight he could not name. The hoofbeats came first, a distant thunder that silenced the morning birds. Then the carts, creaking under the weight of iron and ambition, rolled into view. Men in robes of crimson and gold dismounted, their faces unreadable, their eyes sharp as blades. These were the selectors, servants of the eternal court, come to harvest the empire's most precious resource, beauty. The villagers parted like a sea, offering their sons to the scrutiny of these strangers. Elisa's mother clutched his hand, her fingers trembling, but she said nothing. To resist was to invite ruin. The square became a stage, and the boys, its unwilling actors, one by one, they were called forward, stripped of their tunics, and examined like livestock. Elias watched as his friend Joran, a boy with a crooked smile and sun-freckled cheeks, was dismissed with a curt wave. Joran's relief was palpable, but Elias felt no such reprieve. The chief selector, a man with a voice like gravel and hands that smelled of myrrh, fixed his gaze on him. "Step forward," he commanded. Elias obeyed, his heart a frantic drum. The selector's fingers traced his jaw, tilted his chin to catch the light. His touch was cold, methodical, as if Elias were a statue to be appraised. "Open your mouth," the man said, and Elias complied, revealing teeth unmarred by decay. The selector's nod was a verdict, his quill-scratching notes that sealed Elias's fate. "Flawless," he murmured, and the word was a blade, cutting Elias from the life he knew. The examination continued, relentless and invasive. The selector's hands roamed Elias's scalp, checking for lice, tugging at his hair to test its strength. His torso was bared, his skin prodded for scars or blemishes. Each touch stripped away a piece of Elias's dignity, reducing him to a collection of part-sized lips, limbs valued only for their perfection. His mother's stifled sob echoed in his ears, but he dared not look at her. To look was to break. When it was over, Elias was marked. A crimson ribbon was tied around his wrist, a sign of selection. The other boys, those deemed unworthy, were sent back to their families, their faces a mix of relief and shame. But for Elias and a handful of others, there was no return. The carts awaited, their wooden slats stained with the sweat of countless boys before them. As Elias climbed aboard, the village blurred through his tiers of tapestry of thatched roofs, and familiar faces fading into memory. The journey was a blur of jolting wheels and whispered prayers. The boys sat in silence, their wrists bound by crimson threads, their futures uncertain. Elias clung to the image of his mother's face, her eyes pleading with a God who did not listen. He wondered if she had known, all those years she praised his beauty, that it would betray him. The cart carried him toward the eternal court, a place of marble and shadows where beauty was both a crown and a chain. The eternal court rose from the horizon like a dream carved in stone. Its spires pierced the clouds, and its walls gleamed with veins of gold. Elias, weary from days of travel, felt a pang of awe despite his fear. The cart passed through gates, flanked by statues of winged youths, their marble faces eerily similar to his own. Inside, the air was thick with incense, and the corridors echoed with the soft clink of chains. The selected boys were led to the holding chambers, a labyrinth. Beneath the palace, where light was scarce and shadows reigned, Elias's crimson ribbon was replaced with a silver tag, etched with a number, 47. It hung around his neck, cold against his skin, a constant reminder of his new identity. The chambers were a maze of stone cells, each lit by a single oil lamp, that cast flickering ghosts on the walls. The boys were stripped, bathed, and dressed in tunics of white silk, their bodies prepared for the final inspection. Elias stood in the inspection chamber, his bare feet numb against the marble floor. The other boys, their faces pale and drawn, stood in a silent row, their tags glinting in the lamplight. The chief examiner entered, a figure of silk and menace, his assistants trailing behind with quills and parchment. His eyes, sharp as obsidian, scanned the line, and Elias felt them linger on him. "Number 47, the examiner called, and Elias stepped forward, his knees trembling. The examination was a ritual of precision and humiliation. The examiner's hands, soft as velvet but unyielding, mapped Elias's body with clinical detachment. His hair was parted, each strand inspected for luster and strength. His face was turned, measured, scrutinized. The examiner's calipers pressing against his skin to gauge the symmetry of his features. "Open your mouth," the examiner ordered, and Elias obeyed, his teeth probed with a metal tool that scraped and chilled. "Perfect alignment," the examiner noted, his voice devoid of warmth. The scrutiny continued, relentless and invasive. Elias's torso was bared, his skin stretched and pinched to test its elasticity. His hands were examined, fingers flexed, nails assessed for shape and clarity. His feet, too, were measured, the arches deemed delicate, the toes unblemished. Each evaluation was recorded with a scratch of the quill, reducing Elias to a ledger of attributes. The examiner's questions came next, probing his mind as thoroughly as his body. "What do you fear?" he asked, and Elias's whispered reply, "Losing myself," earned a nod and a note. "Malleable temperament." Final tests were the cruelest. The examiner applied perfumed oils to Elias's skin, observing how they blended with his natural scent. He pricked Elias's arm with a needle, watching for flinches, gauging his pain tolerance. Each touch, each prod, was a lesson in powerlessness, a reminder that Elias was no longer a boy, but a commodity. The other boys endured similar ordeals, their gasps and stifled sobs filling the chamber. Some were marked for lesser rolls, a scar, a tremor, a defiant glance diminishing their value. But Elias, flawless in body and pliable in spirit, was marked for the elite. As the examination ended, Elias felt hollow, his sense of self eroded by the examiner's gaze. The silver tag around his neck seemed heavier, its number a brand that erased his name. The boys were led to their cells, their chains clinking softly. Elias lay on a pallet of straw, staring at the ceiling, where shadows danced like memories of home. He wondered if he would ever see the sky again, or if the palace would swallow him whole, leaving only number 47 in his place. The training began at dawn, though no sunlight reached the chambers. Elias and the other elite boys, those marked with the highest classification, were roused by guards and led to a hall of mirrors. The walls reflected their faces endlessly, a cruel reminder of the beauty that had condemned them. Their trainers, former concubines, with eyes that held both pity and steel, awaited them. "You are the Empire's jewels," one said, her voice soft but unyielding. "We will polish you until you shine." The training was a crucible, designed to reshape the boys into instruments of pleasure and grace. Elias learned to walk with the poise of a dancer, each step measured, each gesture fluid. His hands, once rough from farm work, were trained to pour tea with precision, to trace patterns in the air that pleased the eye. His voice, tested for pitch and clarity, was honed through songs and recitations, its natural tremor smoothed into a melody that could soothe or seduce. The physical regimen was grueling. The boys were fed a diet of honeyed fruits and spiced broths, their bodies sculpted to an ideal of slender strength. Oils and salves were applied daily, keeping their skin luminous, their hair lustrous. Elias endured massages that stretched his limbs to unnatural flexibility, preparing him for roles he dared not imagine. Pain was a constant companion, disguised as discipline, a pinch here, a needle there, testing his endurance. The psychological training was subtler, but more insidious. The trainers probed Elias's fears, his hopes, redirecting them toward service. "Your masters are your family now," they said. And Elias, starved for connection, felt the words take root. They taught him to read the moods of others, to anticipate desires before they were spoken. Defiance was met with isolation, compliance with praise, and Elias learned to crave the latter. Your memories of home grew faint, replaced by the mirrors. Reflection of a stranger's face. The other boys struggled in their own ways. Cale, a boy with raven hair and a fiery spirit, resisted the trainer's commands, earning lashes that left his back scarred. Lear, gentle and frail, wept through the nights his tag a weight he could not bear. Elias, caught between rebellion and surrender, found solace in small acts of defiance, whispering his true name in the dark, tracing his mother's face in his mind. But the palace was relentless, its mirrors reflecting only the boy they wanted him to be. The trainer spoke of the court above, a world of silk and intrigue, where the boys would serve emperors and lords. Elias imagined it as a gilded cage, its beauty a veneer over cruelty. He heard whispers of the fates that awaited them. Some would become companions, others entertainers, a few the personal concubines of the empire's elite. The thought chilled him, but he buried it beneath the routines of training, each day blurring into the next. One night, as Elias lay in his cell, Cale whispered through the bars. "We're not theirs yet," he said, his voice fierce. "We can fight," Elias wanted to believe him, but the silver tag around his neck felt like a noose. He closed his eyes, dreaming of fields and freedom, but woke to the clank of chains and the mirror's unyielding gaze. The palace was reshaping him, and he feared that soon Elias would be gone, leaving only number 47 to face the court. The day of presentation arrived like a storm. Elias and the elite boys, now polished to perfection, were led from the chambers to the court of eternal desire, the heart of the palace. The hall was a vision of opulence marble, floors veined with gold, chandeliers dripping with crystal, air heavy with jasmine and ambition. Lords and ladies in silken robes watched from thrones, their eyes hungry, their smiles sharp. Elias felt exposed, his white tunic clinging to his skin, his silver tag gleaming like a beacon. The boys were paraded before the court, their movements choreographed to showcase their grace. Elias walked with the others, his steps fluid, his gaze lowered as trained. The trainers had prepared them for this moment, teaching them to embody desire without feeling it, to be both present and absent. Ilias's beauty drew murmurs, his chestnut hair catching the light, his eyes a pool of quiet sorrow. A lord in emerald robes pointed, and Elias's heart sank had been chosen. The chosen boys were led to private chambers, where their new masters awaited. Elias's lord, a man with silver hair and a voice like velvet, greeted him with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You are exquisite." "Number 47, he said, and Elias flinched at the erasure of his name. The chamber was a cage of silk and mirrors, its walls reflecting his every move. The Lord's touch was gentle but possessive, a reminder of the role Elias was to play. Days blurred into nights, each a performance of grace and submission. Elias served tea, sang songs, moved as the Lord desired, his body a tool, his mind a fortress. He clung to fragments of himself as mother's lullaby. The smell of rain on fields, but they slipped through his fingers like sand. The Lord praised his beauty, his obedience, but Elias felt only emptiness. His reflection in the mirrors, a stranger's face. The other boys' fates varied. Cale, defiant to the end, was sent to the lower courts, his spirit unbroken, but his body marked. Lear, too fragile for the elite, became an entertainer, his songs haunting the halls. Elias saw them rarely, their shared glances a fleeting reminder of the boys they had been. The court was a world of whispers and power, where beauty was currency, and loyalty a lie. Elias learned to navigate its currents, to smile through his fear, but the cost was his soul. One night as the Lord slept, Elias stood before a mirror, his tag heavy around his neck. He traced his reflection, searching for the boy he had been. "Elias," he whispered, the name a rebellion. He knew escape was impossible. The palace was a labyrinth, its guards unyielding, but he vowed to survive, to carry his true self. In secret, the court could claim his body but not his heart. The story of Elias and the countless boys like him is a shadow on history, a reminder of beauty's cruel price. Their lives reduced to numbers and roles, Speak of a world where perfection was a curse and survival a quiet act of defiance. In the mirrors of the eternal court, they saw not themselves, but the desires of others. And yet, in their hearts, they held fast to the names no one could take.